What's up, guys? Jairo from the Grind Fitness Training Systems. Welcome to another topic. Today, we're going to do fight tempo shifts with contrast sprints training. Um, so what we're learning here is, through one of the other videos, we're basically working the glycolytic energy system. So we're learning to push that lactate threshold by doing a contrast of sprints and actual conditioning, depending on what you're doing, whether you're doing the sprints alone or you're an MMA fighter and you're combining, let's say, sprints with actual position training. So it really depends on how you're training. So up here, I put either sprints or the Aerodyne bike. I found that the Aerodyne bike is probably the closest you can mimic to combat sports training as far as like pushing the anaerobic threshold even more than sprints. Now, the reason why sprints are good for you is because sprints help you be a better human. So you have to kind of decide or figure out how you can balance the two, because the Aerodyne is a good substitute for sprints. But in actuality, in the long term, we're thinking young to old, retirement, whenever you decide not to train, it's better to actually do sprints because it actually helps with you being a better human. So if you decide to use Aerodynes instead, that's fine, but also try to figure out how you can start actually, adding the sprint training. So the reason why this is important is because fights don't happen at one speed. That's basically why we're doing the contrast training. Because sometimes it's like slow pace, sometimes it's a lot of volume, sometimes it's blitz mode. Combat sports are very, very different. A lot of isometrics if you're a grappler. So you got to understand, like, there's no like one steady pace of conditioning. It's not like running where you get to a certain level and you're just pushing the pace the whole time. And it's not like sprinting where you're going all out for 10 seconds. Combat sports is not like that. So you have to kind of train your cardio conditioning in a way that mimics close as you can to combat sports. So the example I gave here is, it's like doing an example of you're going from jogging to sprinting to walking, and then you're repeating. You do like 3 to 5 cycles of that. Now, if you decide to do it, if you're an MMA fighter, then you can kind of combine it with sprinting, let's say grappling, double unders, and then striking. So you're combining just straight up conditioning with practical strength here, which is also conditioning, with speed and tenacity. Totally different energy cycles, total like isometrics. This is more explosiveness. And then you're going to repeat. Same thing. You're going to go 3 to 5 rounds, whatever you decide to do, whatever fitness level you're at to some degree. You kind of have to figure that out. So start small and slowly expand it. Start with small spurts, larger recovery. Figure that balance out. I don't know what to recommend on that because I don't know where your fitness level is at. Okay? Why fighters need it. Goes back to other videos, recovery time called lactate buffering, which means that you don't get tired as quickly, which is amazing. So I don't know if anybody's ever been like, there's certain peak times that every fighter's gone through where you feel like superhuman. And it's because you just don't get tired. Like, you can go and go and go and go. And this type of training is going to kind of build that gas tank, because there's no better feeling than feeling like Superman when you're in a fight position. Because not only does it train lactate buffering, but it also trains mental composure. Anybody that doesn't do combat sports, the best example that I can kind of give you is like when you're running. Like, there's a certain like tenacity that you get if you're a runner, because your body and that monkey mind that we have tells you to stop, and you have to kind of overcome that and go, no, I'm not going to stop. I have another mile. I have another 2 miles. I have another 10 miles. I have another 100 yards. Whatever your competition is, it's training the mental strength to understand that you're pushing the lactate buffering more and more and more. And so the better that you get at controlling the mind or holding the composure, the more efficient you're going to get with the lactate threshold, and vice versa. Okay. So I put on here some sample protocols. If you're a beginner, let's say you're going to do 3 to 5 rounds, you go 20 seconds jog, 10 seconds sprint, 20-second walk, and then you repeat. Now, like I said, you can do a sprint, but you can also use the Aerodyne. So you can do this on alternating days of you lifting. So let's say you go to the Aerodyne bike, you're going to go 3 to 5 rounds. You do a 20-second comfortable pace on the Aerodyne, whatever that number is for you. Then you do a 10-second full-on sprint on the Airdyne. And then you do a 10-second either cold stop or such a slow pace that it feels like a walk. You just have to figure out that intensity. Again, I don't know what that intensity is for you. That's something that you have to decide. You know you, and you know where your fitness level is at. This is where you have to do a little bit of science project on yourself. So take some notes. Okay, like on the Airdyne, there's usually like an RPM thing. Like, is it 50 RPMs? Is it 60 RPMs? Is it 80 RPMs? I don't know what that number is. You have to figure that out. If you're an advanced person, which hopefully you guys go from beginner to advanced, you're going to do, say, 3 to 5 rounds, but then you're going to go 60 seconds tempo. Now, when I say tempo, that means somewhere between jogging and sprinting. You're not sprinting, but you're not jogging. You're like comfortably running where you're running strong, but you can manage the discomfort. So imagine if it was like, let's say 10 is a sprint and 0 is walking. You're somewhere hovering around like 7-ish, 8-ish number kind of work. So you do that for 60 seconds. Then from there, you're going to do a full-on 15-second sprint. And then from there, you're going to do a 45-second jog. So basically what you're doing is medium pace, full-on sprint, low interval, and then repeat it for 3 to 5 rounds. Okay? Now, when you're training it or figuring out during the week or how you're going to add it into your program, there's 2 different things you want to think of. So programming tips. You want to try to do it at least 2 times a week. You don't want to do it too many times. I would say max like 3, because if you're training, especially if you're doing MMA or if you're doing a lot of grappling, you're already doing a lot of conditioning. You don't want to overtax your heart and lung capacity. So 2 times a week is usually what I recommend, 3 at the most. And you want to avoid pairing it with your max lift days. So if you're doing it right, you're also doing strength training. So you're doing like deadlifts, you're doing back squats, you're doing, cleans, stuff where you're doing like explosive stuff. You don't want to do that and this type of training. So let's say if you're doing some type of strength and conditioning, you want to do that Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Then you're going to do this type of work Tuesday, Thursday. Or switch it, strength and conditioning Tuesday, Thursday. This type of work Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Again, it depends on your fitness level and what you're trying to accomplish. Are you trying to get your gas tank better, or are you trying to get stronger when you fight? You know where you're at. You just have to figure that out. I can't tell you that because I don't know you. So you have to self-reflect and go, okay, do I feel strong, or do I feel like my gas tank is low? If my gas tank is low, then we need to work on this. Then we're going to do the 3-day this, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and strength training Tuesday, Thursday. If at a certain point when you're doing your sport, whether it's striking, grappling, or whatever it is, and you're feeling like you don't get tired, then you're good with this. So cut back to 2 days a week and then switch to strength and conditioning Monday, Wednesday, Friday, so that over time you start getting stronger and it transfers over to this condition as well, because you're going to be able to push harder on those days. Does that make sense? I hope it makes sense. I think I covered everything. Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Again, comment down below. Shoot me a DM. Any questions, concerns, anything to that nature, let me know. I also have an online program if you're interested. There's a link somewhere in some of my stuff. Click on it. You can download a free 7-day reset, 100% free. If you like it, hopefully you trust me enough to invest in one of my programs, and we'll get you started in an actual kind of program so that you're not kind of guessing this work. All right, guys, thanks for watching. See you in the next video.